Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Board workshop, roll call. Doug Criddle here, Seth Steeman, Chong Yang, Oliver Taylor,
Present.
Frank Crawford, absent, Richard Galicia, Stefan Fuhrer. On the agenda tonight, persons wishing to address the board under public comments or specific agenda items prior to the board taking action must complete a public comments card and place it in the public's comment basket. Speakers will be invited to the podium in order the public comments cards were received. For special meetings and workshops, there is no public comment for non-agenda items. Public comment is limited to items on this agenda. By law, board members can only take action or engage in dialogue for agenda items. A limited time of 3 minutes per speaker has been established and will be enforced. The board reserves the right to decrease the amount of time allotted per speaker, and this total time is 20 minutes for total time with subject. Open session agenda related documents and pages and special reports can be viewed on the MJUSD website, www.mjusd.com. You'd select the board and then agendas and minutes. Notice of special meetings or workshops of the board will be available at least 24 hours prior to this special meeting or workshop. In compliance with American Disabilities Act, the agenda for the board meetings can be made available upon request in a format appropriate for a person with a disability. If you are an individual with a disability who needs special accommodations to participate, please contact the Office of the Superintendent at 530-749-6101. Notification 24 hours prior to the meeting will enable the executive assistant to make reasonable arrangements to ensure accessibility to this meeting. Accommodations may include but are not limited to interpreters, parking, and accessible seating. The discussion that we're having tonight in our workshop will be centered around the attributes of the new superintendent. This special board meeting study sessions we're hoping and thank you for arriving that the public may address the topics that we're talking about on the agenda during the section of the agenda, or asked that they may be heard during a specific agenda item. Now moving forward, we have 1.2, Yuba County Offices of Education, Superintendent Search, the Superintendent Greger.
All right, welcome board. My name is Rob Greger. If you have not had the chance to meet me personally, I enjoy the fact of getting to know each of the board members, and some of you came to one of our trainings that we did about the responsibilities of a board, and we will be having some more coming up, so just be aware of that to be able to offer that to you. Have they been given their packets? All right, can we start, Russ, on the first page there? All right, I just kind of want to go over a few of the attributes and things that we're looking for and what we're going to be doing. And then as we do this, this is more of an a la carte. This is not a one shop, this is all you get. You add on and what you want, and we want it to be, what is the board looking for? A lot of people know what the needs and things are out there based on responses and things of that nature. You guys are aware that as you're elected into a position that you were given the duty of putting in the new superintendent and also making sure that they are given direction by you. And that is part of the board's responsibilities. And what we want to do is make sure that not only is it the board that has a say on that, but your community, your students, your bargaining groups, all of that within that. And if we go through those stages, there's different levels of how much information and how little information that you want to go through. What we're going to do is just kind of discuss some of those, and I'm going to introduce my team here and let you know who they are. And then when we go to closed session, you're going to make those final decisions on the time frame, your timeline, and then we'll announce that when we come out, when you're going to start your search, the day, and when it will end. And so we'll just kind of go through that and that processes. Any questions before we begin? Oh, silence. Those are all deadly. Starting on your left, would be over here, Amy Knorr. She is going to be handling all of our information that goes out to the public. So anything that we do online, anything that is put out as far as PowerPoints, things like that, Amy will be responsible for, and she will be doing that. So that is Amy Knorr. Mary Hang is our Director of Personnel, and so everything that goes to personnel and to that office, Mary's going to do all the background checks, she's going to do the reference checks, and all the information that goes out to EdJoin, EdCal, I always want to call it CalEd for AXA, and then like school services. So she would be in charge of that area, and then her team would be doing all the vetting for those candidates, and then the information that goes out. And then last, my EA is my executive assistant, and that's Haley Pomeroy. She will be your point of contact, your POC. So anytime that you have anything that you want to be directed to myself, you can have your point of contact, which should be Anna, and then one of the board members you choose, whether it be the board president or someone else that you choose to be your main contact as the board rep. Okay, so she will get all that information, and she will make sure that you have timelines, time frames, and then when we come to you at board meetings to kind of share out where we are in the processes and those things, you have that information, and that's who it is. And then obviously myself will be doing the lead and being the representative as the county office of Ed for Yuba County. If you start looking at phase one and you look at the page, if we go to the next slide, I guess I can do that. That would be Rob. What we're doing is we're looking for the initial board meeting, and that's right now, and we will establish characters or characteristics of what you want in a new superintendent. Establish a timeline for the search, and then you will determine the advertising venues that you want to go out. You want to go deep and wide? Do you want to go short and shallow? Do you want to keep it within? You have that right to determine all of those as a board. I will give you direction as what I think is best based on my experiences and what would be, and I think behoove the board to be able to help create a community understanding of what takes place, and then also helping our community in the Yuba County area feel a part of that. I think one of the biggest things that we've discovered, if you actually ever read anything online or what's going on and the verbiage that's out there, there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of miscommunication that takes place. So people get little bits and then they feel like they're an expert on it. And that's kind of what happens within this. If we can actually break that down and we get people to be involved and they feel a part of that process, I believe that you as the board would have a better job and do a better way of making sure that they feel valued and to be a part of that processes. So those are just some of the things that we need to be deciding and looking through as we go through this process. Phase two, stakeholder input, advertising and recruitment. So we have in the back, you see a survey. It's a general survey that we can cater to each of the groups, whether it be a student survey, we could do an admin survey, you can do a teacher survey, classified parent survey, and even community member surveys. Because you know, there are community members, they elected you and put you into this position, and they have expectations of you. And so you can make sure that we are addressing all of those within those stakeholders. Then we need to develop and launch the recruitment, which is basically getting it out to the people that would want to be applying for this position. Just based on the numbers alone, most people are going to be excited about the money that is put there, but that's not what you're looking for. You're going to be looking for who is going to take you where you want to go. And then you have to decide that as the board, because you set the directive, you set that in place, and then it's the superintendent's job to enact that and build the team within those things and report back to you that they are following your directive. So it's important that as we develop and launch that recruitment, that we set forth in that processes what you want and the characteristics of the person that you hire. So as you're going through those processes, you need to be thinking about what are some of the values that your community and your teachers, your classified staff, your students, and others are looking for in a superintendent. And then what you're trying to do is you're narrowing it down, and I call it the kaleidoscope effect. A lot of time people you talk about a target. Well, I look at it like you may get a lot of different colors and a lot of different things out there, but when you start turning it and it starts turning into that kaleidoscope and you see all of the different colors come together, you go, that's what we're looking for. That's what we want. And those are the characteristics that you go after because you feel those are what the values of your community has, what your staff wants, and what your, frankly, your teachers and your classified staff are looking for also. So it's more of turning that into and then bringing it into focus, and you as the board make that decision. Through that, it's going to take, not only are we going to recruit through applicants, you're going to have to then decide how deep and how wide are we going to go within the processes. That's the phase 3. After the reference checking is done and evaluations and reference checks, and that would be done by Mary and her department within our HR, then we have to develop the interview questions. What are you looking for? What do you want to ask? What is important to you? What's important to your community? What's important to your staff? What are some of the buzzwords that keep coming up? And to get that, we actually have to do what I would like to do is like a community stakeholders meetings, get their point of view. What do teachers, what are they wanting? What are the staff wanting, the classified? What are your clerks? What are your secretaries? What do your administrators want? What are they looking for? Then what does the community feel like you need? And as you do that, then it's your job to narrow that down and decide what do we want as a collective group, as a board. So phase 4 is optional, but again, I put it in there because I highly recommend it, is that instead of just being the final 2 people come to you, you do a part where you actually get stakeholders from MJUSD. You would even get your bargaining units in on that. You would maybe actually have some community members, 1 or 2 board members at the most in that. And they would do the first set of interviews and they would narrow it down, let's say from 10 down to 3. And then those 3 then would come before you as the board, and then you would make the decision. And you get the community stakeholders to say, they're here, that they could live with any of these 3, but they're obviously you get to make the final decision. By doing that, then you get to have people have a say. And not always does everybody, get our way, but we want to be able to communicate what are the positives? What are the things that we're doing? And did they get to hear those things? Did they hear that person discuss them? Or did they, and it also gives you time to get an idea of who they are and a little bit about those parts. And then they report back to you, your 2 board members would report back to you, and then we decide whether the final 3, and we would bring that information back in frankly, a closed session, and we would discuss, like, here's your final candidates. Now you need to do your final interviews, and then you need to make the decision based on which one of these you think are the best fit for this job and for this position and what they need and what you need them to be. The last 2 parts are the phase 5, which is a selection of the finalists. That would be once, if you did choose the optional part of the 4, you would, after having those interviews, you could have anywhere from 2 to even 3 if there's 2 that are tied and you just want 3 people to come before you, or just 2. And then you make that final decision on what the candidates are and then the selection of the new superintendent. And the last part is we want it not to end there. We want to offer mentorship, where not only for the board and being able to help you set your vision and mission for that person and what directives and how to do that for a new superintendent, but they meet with myself and our team on how to do different things and how to set up the mission and the vision and how to work with their community, how to work with their stakeholders, how to work with their unions, and being able to be a team player and to be a positive part of this community. So those are some of the things that we offer for that and for the person. Any questions from there? Man, silence is deafening.
Well, thank you, Mr. Greer. I couldn't agree with you more. I think what we were looking for is something different.
Yep.
That we can get an inclusive input from our stakeholders. So we're asking you to give us some inclusive input. We want to hear what you have to say. We also want inclusive partnerships that would work close at hand. Marysville joint with Yuba County Office of Ed should be an inclusive partnership, and we want to strengthen those bonds and those partnerships and move forward and make some great things happen here for our students and our community.
Yes, Dr. Yang.
I do have a suggestion on phase 2, just so that we want to make sure that our only input is not just surveys, because I'm looking at the input coming back. It's either you get on the community interview panel, which is optional, phase 4, or that as part of the survey, I would like to see if it's possible to at least have 2 listening sessions, maybe at our 2 comprehensive high schools, Marysville and Olivehurst, and allow community members to actually voice it. And I would suggest it to be a listening session, so then the board members could attend, but they cannot speak, right? And they just listen to the comments that were brought. And then
I can't concur more. Those are some of the things that I was going to suggest in your closed session, is that you do that. And mine is up to 4, where you have community stakeholders come and get to be able to discuss within our community. And we set up 4 times, or 3, 2, whatever the board determines, where you actually getting feedback from your community, and not just students, but also people that live in the community that no longer have students here, because they do have a, they do have a say, and that is by voting you into these positions. And they want to know that, what are you doing for our community? How are you bettering our students? What are the things that are happening? And for them to be able to have that voice and be able to have that, I think that would be really important in bringing healing and bringing back some community support with Marysville Joint Unified, and for the person that, that they're looking to have in place.
yeah, absolutely. And just to extend your point, I think not just looking at students and former students and people associated to MJSD, but also the taxpayers and the businesses and everybody who are stakeholders for the superintendent.
Couldn't say it better.
Okay.
Any other questions or thoughts before we go on just a little bit next to the next page and just kind of going over a few parts of the phases? Am I forgetting anything over time? We going good? Okay, so the stakeholders part that you were referring to, Dr. Yang, is on the second page if you turn. And it is listed under here when we talked about, what part is it, Amy, did you say? Okay, middle section, the board will identify the various stakeholder groups from whom they wish to receive. Ooh, who went back? Sorry. All right, so in the middle where it says identify, and they wish to receive feedback, not just via online survey, but we would like to do one where it's in person and multiple ones. So that would be something that you would add into it. Basically just cutting it down into, what I call just quick bullets. You want to identify the most important characteristics and qualifications in the superintendent, and then those processes, and that's where we would assist with that, and you can kind of go there. You want to establish appropriate timelines, because the target dates, you want to have this done by July 1, guys. I mean, you don't want to go beyond that. You want that person to be able to start within that. Most school districts and things like that are making their decisions in March, and people are thinking about their future. So you would want to make sure that by March that you've already started your interview processes and you're moving within that. And then that way they can go through the board and come before you, because there are a few meetings they have to have where they actually interview with you, but also you're going to have one meeting where you negotiate and get the salary, and then another one where you approve it. So there's some time frames and timelines when you're looking at it. We call it basically your backward steps. You got to get to what your last thing you're doing, and then move backwards all the way to day 1. When is it that you're going to bust it out? So you could decide tonight, on January, we'll say 15th, tomorrow, you want us to have it put out on every media post and everything out, that we are going to start the hiring process and put it out there for you. And we can make that happen day 1 tomorrow. And that's what you have to decide. And then once we put it out there, and once it's in the universe, then what's our next steps? And that would be, like I said, start from the very back and then time frame it within that. So determine with the board appropriate and advertising, that's the venues. Do you want to go big and broad, or do you want to keep it close? I mean, are you looking in-house? Are you looking solely in there? Or would you like it within the community only, within the Yuba County Sutter area? I know you'll still get people from outside, but how narrow or how large is up to you. And you need to make that determination as the board. Identify the appropriate stakeholders is what we were just discussing. Who you want involved. How deep do you want, do you want your voters to have a say? I highly recommend it, because they put you in these positions to be able to determine why and who is in this job, being able to educate their children or grandchildren sometimes, and other areas, or their nieces and nephews, or they just care because they have a vested interest in their community. Then the next thing after we do that would be assist the board in determining compensation parameters. What are you looking to? What are you going to pay? You don't have to announce that. All you have to do is put in that you are going to be within scope of paying them as far as what their value you think is worth and what it would take to get them. And so you can set that within the parameters of what you're looking. And you guys can say, this is our max, if you want to put it out there, or you can say, this is our least. You know, we can put those kind of within your advertising and how you do it. The next is designate the points of contact. We'll need to know who you determine as your point of contact within your board. And then also for usually your secretary, your EA, like Anna would be the one that would send out and disseminate the information to everyone within MJUSD and then back to us. And then they would be our point of contact for everything. And usually you have the backup is usually your board president or whoever you guys determine as one of the board members. The last part is identify the board member as a point of contact. Oh, that's what I just said, that one, and making sure that they're aware of it. Any questions on basically the time frame and the phases of what it would take? I didn't go into all the bullets on it, but you can kind of get an idea for what would be done in order and by definition. All right, next page then. Identify the most important characteristics. These are just some of the words that came up then when we've done superintendent searches before. What you do is you need to come up with that as a board. You are going to do that, and you're going to fill in yours, or you can circle some of these. We wanted to put some ideas into your head because a lot of times when you're doing think tank or you're doing time, you get, you know, what we call, you know, the brain freeze, and nothing wants to come to your mind. But as you hear words or you hear coined words or phrases, as they come up more and more, those are what in education they call the buzzwords. And there's a lot of buzzwords where a lot of people use them, but they don't know them and they don't feel it in the heart where it's coming from. But having somebody that maybe has a strong communication skills is important to you guys. Maybe you were looking for somebody instead of a short timer, you know, somebody that's getting ready to retire. You want to say, you know what, it's really important that we have somebody that's going to be long-term invested within this community and within this district. You need to make those kind of determinations. So those are some important parts. You want to make sure that maybe they own their mistakes. When they do something wrong, they're the first person to admit it. And then they're saying, you know what, my bad. I'm the one that did this, and I own up to it. Not putting blame on others. Maybe that's something that's important to you and those values. One of the things that came up over and over again is somebody that listens to understand, not listen to respond. Making sure that when they're actually listening to you, that they're doing it with the mindset of like, oh, that's what they mean. That's what they're doing. And not having to always give a response and not looking for a way to defend what they're doing. Maybe that's important to you. Maybe you're looking for somebody that values relationships. Maybe you're looking for somebody that you just wants policy making. Maybe you feel like there's not enough policies. I mean, God help us all. There's not like enough to do, but still, if that's important to you, you need to determine those things. Labor negotiation should be very important to you because somebody that has that understanding of how to work with your labor groups and is wanting to be collaborative, because those aren't going away. And we want to make sure that we value each other and that we work together to help our students. So having those type of values is important. A statement that comes up a lot is the we, not me, you know, where it's not all about that person. It's not all about me and what about I do, but what are we going to do? How can we tackle this? What are we going to do? So these are some of just buzzwords or things that come up, but you get to determine that. And you'll hear that in your stakeholder meetings. You're going to hear it in your surveys. And as those deviations of words come up over and over again, what we do is we put those words into the questionnaires and we put those into it. So we make sure that that person, when they're responding to some of those questions when we're having their interviews. So that's why you have those, you know, that standard deviation or plus or minuses as something comes up more and more. Those are things that everyone's saying, this is a must. I would say a must is don't make a mistake. You know, don't do what you did last time. Something might come up over and over again. When you see that, then you're going, okay, these are the things that we want to have within it. Questions? All right, so here's your time frames. Today, January 14th, this is our initial board meeting. We're going to determine, obviously, some of the characteristics and desires that you're going to look for in a superintendent. And then today, we're going to need to come up with a timeline. And we'll do that in your closed session. And then you need to determine how you want to open or close recruitment. Because some people are not going to apply for this job if their name's thrown out there. So if you're going to keep it closed, then you're going to have probably more people that are willing to do it because they're taking a risk. There are some superintendents that their boards are happy with them right now, and they want them there. And if all of a sudden their name's getting thrown out in this position, they're not going to throw their name in the hat. So you have to determine, are you going to do it open or closed as far as the process of the information? Once it gets down to your final three, there's no hiding, right? Once you get to that point. But with that process, until they get to that, you're probably going to want to consider keeping it closed because you want to honor the people that want to have that position, and you're going to get some people that you may not have thought would actually put their name in because they're concerned that, you know, if I grow, that's going to be important. So you're going to need to decide that. The next steps that you're going to do is the community engagement part. Online surveys, board determines your survey windows, your survey languages, how many community events that we're going to do, how many times we're going to do it. Is it going to be once, twice at each of the, as Dr. Yang just said, are you going to do it both of the high schools? Are you going to even do one at the community forum? We could hold one at the Beckworth room in the YCOE there, and we could do a community forum where people could come and give their voices and things like that. The next thing, if you see that it's in blue, that's your item, and you have to come up with a date. If it's in black, it's our item, and we need to come up with a date. But we can't come up with a date till you come up with a date on a lot of different things as doing that. Once we staff and community and designated for the board to receive the input. So we will set up the meetings, basically, is what that's saying. The next thing is YCOE will identify the potential candidates, develop and posting of the recruitment materials, and the description. We'll set that date. Advertising and active recruitment, set the date. Deadlines for applications, when we're saying this is the drop dead date, it has to be in, or you don't get even an opportunity to be in it. Next, you go through YCOE complete comprehensive reference and background checks, then this is on you. Board confers with YCOE and receives all applications and selects the candidates to be interviewed. And that would be once you do your closed session one. And then the board interviews the candidates, selects your final list. And then the next thing you would do is you complete the validation process of the leading the candidate. You make your final determination. And then you have to do that at a board meeting. And then you have to come back and then you have to approve them. And then the last thing is you need to set the date when you want them to start. I highly suggest July 1 would be your start date. Because most fiscal things, if you know, your CBO can tell you, Jennifer, that you want things to be clean. And it's really nice when they start, you know, July 1 and it ends June 30th, because that is the fiscal year for schools. Doesn't always work that way. And if you want somebody to come in sooner, you have that right. Or like I said, you even have the right if you want to make it within, and you can go from that. If you have an internal candidate and you're wanting to watch them and do those processes, you can scratch everything and go through it. Say, you know what, this person is, you know, they've risen to the top and we want them. You can do that. You have those parameters within your job. I don't suggest you do those things, but you have that ability to, and we can kind of discuss those too. And then the last part is just the surveys. We actually put them in there so you could see them. It just has some of the basic questions. What their roles are, how long they've been associated, what do you value the most, most important, 5 not as important, and then rank of importance between the following for professional experience. Are there any other characteristics you believe are important? Rank the following for the new superintendent on scale. Are there any other skills you're looking for the essential and new superintendent? And then basically some more just kind of informational items that you could place in. And we can change and add anything you want. We are going to set it up to where it can only come from one computer one time, so that you're not having people do it multiple times and put it, but we're also not going to be tracking either as far as information. It should be anonymous for somebody. They shouldn't feel like what they're saying is they can't be truthful. So you want to have people to be able to be honest and be open. And that's a great opportunity for them to be able to see and for you to hear what their voice is saying. And again, you'll have the standard deviation always of somebody that's, you know, just outliers, you know, they're in there, and then those that are, you know, just everything's wonderful and then everything's awful. Those are going to be within every survey that you take. And especially when they're anonymous. It's just, you understand that's going to be part of that process too. So don't think every one of them is going to be like, oh, but it's going to be a general idea of a conglomerate where 90 to 95% of the people are going to come up with general ideas of what you're looking for. That's the last I have of that. Questions again, and then we need to open for comments for people to have discussion for you.
Just a question on your comment about limiting the survey to one response per computer. Do we really believe that there's going to be that many spoilers in terms of the survey?
No, we don't, but it's just what happens is Otherwise, if you don't do that, somebody could take the same one at the same computer 10 times.
So could I make a suggestion that instead of doing that, could we just record whatever fingerprint that we're using to identify those computers and provide back to the board what is the heuristics behind it?
It's your choice, so
Okay,
yes.
yeah, because the challenge for me would be is that we live in a community that may have multifamilies in a household.
And you'll be able to do it on your phone too, Dr. Yang, just so you know. So we'll make it phone friendly also.
Okay.
But yes,
Yes, and we don't want to limit that.
agreed. So,
Okay.
But you can have that any way you want. You get to cater it. So remember I told you it's the a la carte. It's not a buffet. It's like you say this, this, and this. Ready to open up for comment time? Or do you have any more questions for myself?
Does the board have any other questions? I'd like to hear maybe from the rest of you. Any questions? Okay. I do have a comment card. Angela Stiegel.
I would just like to say, whoever just said, I'm shocked back there, come on. I mean, really. So just a few things. Angela Stiegel, I'm president for the Marysville Unified Teachers Association. And one of the things, and this is purely just a reminder, it's not a knock on anybody because I believe you guys all just got the slides packet, but just as a reminder to put out there, if we could get the slides attached to the agenda so that people out in internet world can get those whenever they want, that would be really helpful. As far as actual kind of input onto the subject at hand, it would really be beneficial and it would go a long way with your labor leaders if you would do, like Rick Teagarden did, superintendent search before last, which is he actually met with the labor leaders individually to hear what we had to say and what our experiences were, because that is very different from one group to the next, for one thing. But also, if you truly want to give your labor leaders the idea that somehow you really do want that input, that's the way to get it. Because if you're just going to send out a survey to everybody, then it doesn't exactly give the impression that you really, really care what we have to say when you just send me a survey that's got 3 or 4 questions on it. If you really want to say that you're providing input and quality input, then having a meeting with those labor leaders is beneficial. And like I said, Rick Teagarden met with each one of us. I do understand that that's slightly time consuming, but he managed to do it on a much shorter timeline than we even have right now. Speaking of the surveys, I see the survey in there. I did have a hard time hearing part of it, so Mr. Greger may have already said this, but I think maybe that's a sample of a survey. I would suggest that the surveys do need to be tailored to the groups that they're going out to, because for instance, in looking what's in this packet, I don't know very many students that are going to rank labor relations very high on their responses on that. And so then, I mean, they might, if I talk to them a lot in first and third period, they might. But just saying, I understand that could be a little bit, again, time consuming, labor intensive on whoever's part that is that has to come up with those surveys. But again, you will end up with much more high quality information coming back from that, because then you have to sit there and try to figure out, you know, did 50 students reply and 500 employees and 10 community members, and so is that where your data is coming from? Is that why one thing is being ranked higher than another? Really, you're going to have to come up with different surveys for each group if you really want to have, again, your survey data be adequate and be pertinent to what you're really trying to get from it. Also, I would say that in talking about, I heard Mr. Greger mention the compensation. I would just make sure, for one, I bet you're real shocked that I have some definitive opinions on that, but anybody who may be thinking about being an applicant, especially since we have mentioned in-house, anybody who's doing that should have absolutely zero input as far as a conversation in regards to compensation discussions for the position, just as an FYI. And I'm sure anybody who is thinking about that has already thought so, but just putting that out there point blank, because that could really lead to some problems later on, that if there do become issues like maybe we recently had, it would be fuel for the fire if whoever gets hired for this job actually participated in conversations about what the salary and compensation would be for it beforehand. That would be problematic. As far as adding on to possible traits, qualities, that kind of, I do think it's interesting that in looking at those slides, that seems to be the antithesis of our recent experience. But I would just add that we really, just saying, we need to make sure that we have somebody who is here for this district. We need to make sure that whoever we bring into this job, that one of their top qualities is the fact that this district and its students and its employees and the parents are the top priority. Not glad-handing and grandstanding and buying awards for him or herself or getting an ego boost out of the job. They need to be here for this district, not for him or herself solely. Thank you.
Angela, I got a couple of questions. First of all, thank you. I mean, you run back and forth. If I could maybe make a proposal, we have had, I believe, a successful meeting with several board members in MUTA. How long would it take you and your people to gather and aggregate some of the information that you could get back and maybe meet with not a quorum of board members, but that we can discuss what those items are, and then we could integrate those into some of the questioning?
For MUTA, I would say at this point in time, just because of the fact that we're kind of up to our eyeballs in another really important subject right now, and a very big task that we have to get wrapped up before we can kind of leap into something else, AKA mediation and contract negotiations. If we can get that tied up, then I would say probably, I don't know, a couple of weeks, because we could get something out to our members, find a date. It's a little dicey right now, like I said, just because of the fact that we have these other issues going on. Mm-hmm. But I also think, I do know that we have representatives from at least one other labor organization here. And so you might want to also ask them, because I don't know what their time frame would be. I know for us, you know, this week, of course, is already done, and then we've got next week and the next. You're probably looking at the very end of this month or the very beginning of February for us.
Do you like that as a whole, as a proposal?
I mean, we'll do whatever we can to help out, and especially in order for us to have, like I said, quality input into this process, because it's no surprise to anybody that in the last few years, the word input has almost become kind of a dirty word, definitely a misnomer, but if you're really looking for quality input from the groups, then I would think that any labor organization would gladly meet with their folks, even help out as far as developing a survey tailored to labor organizations, and get together with our members and get you that real input. But again, sit down and have a face-to-face conversation with us then to find out what we gleaned from that. I know we would do that. I don't know why anybody else would. But again, I can't speak for those other labor groups, but I know there's a couple of people here who you probably could ask that question to for at least one other group.
Great. I'd like to explore that further so that we can pull this together. Thank you.
Now am I good to go? Just checking. Every time I do that, I go walk off, and then it's like, wait. Thanks.
Come back.
Any other questions from the public? Easy crowd. Does everybody feel like they're going to be able to be heard?
I do want to speak to what Angela Stiegel was saying. We definitely would love to meet with the labor groups, and we would gladly do that on the behalf of the board if you gave us that directive. And we would make meetings just even to go with their boards and their groups and meet with them individually on our own and do that in that time. I have no problem doing all of those things. Those are things that when we discussed in closed session, just like I was saying, we would tailor it. Even that, it was one of the things I did say, we would tailor it to the groups as far as the surveys and even for the community and different things, because you can't do the same one for everyone. We understand that. But we easily can do that and make it tailored to any group, but we would love to be in person with people because you do get the emotion and you get the feeling and you get the heartfelt part of it. Because a lot of people, it's really important that their voice be heard, and I highly recommend as your board members, you are wanting to hear your community members, your labor unions, and your obviously even your administration staff. You want to hear from them also. Their voice should be heard also within that. So just food for thought.
Thank you. All right, well, it looks like we're going to close our board workshop and move into open session. Okay, so I want to... All right, 2.1 open session roll call. Doug Criddle here, Seth Steinman, Dr. Yang, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Crawford is absent, Mr. Galicio, Mr. Fuhrer, and we also have a student representative tonight, correct? Melina? All right, and then we had one public comment here we'd like to go to, and that's Mr. Jim Carpenter. Jim, you here? There you are. Jim Carpenter.
Hello again. You have a very unique opportunity tonight. First, out of a 7-member board, you've got 3 brand new trustees. This is a very different board. You could choose a new direction. Second, the superintendent who led you to this point is gone. You just began the process of selecting a replacement. You could choose somebody who's already well known in this district, someone with deep roots in this community, someone who will put the needs of this district and our students above their own, someone whose communication skills include listening. Third, we just had an independent, impartial mediator come through and suggest a settlement, a compromise, in which neither side gets everything that they want, but hopefully it's something that we can all live with. As you look around the room, this is probably the smallest crowd we've seen in months. For quite some time, lots of people have been taking time out of their busy lives to come here. Not because we enjoy conflict, but you control the district's purse strings. And that very real money has a very real impact on the very real lives of more than just the 500+ teachers in this district, but the administrators, counselors, the secretaries and clerks, the bus drivers and custodians, the paraprofessionals, the psychologists, nurses, and therapists, buildings and grounds, coaches, librarians, yard duty, the people who day in and day out give their all for this district and our students. And when in a time of inflation, the state grants a cost of living adjustment, we should be a priority. And so before you go into closed session tonight, I urge you to take full advantage of this extraordinary opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. You've been recognized. The board is now going to go into closed session, and we will reconvene at 7:45. Thank you.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com. In Yuba County, there's a legendary diner.
Oh, that looks delicious. Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Where the parking lot tells a story. A story as simple as biscuits and gravy.
The food is good. The prices are wonderful. My dad has so many friends here that come here, and it's my dad and mom have known Mary Jane and her dad before Duke.
Duke's Diner on 7th Avenue, home of legendary chili, holiday pies, and generations of local residents preparing tasty, hearty food for generations of local people. Join Mary Jane and her genial associates as they serve meals you'll come back for. Duke's Diner on 7th Avenue, Olivehurst.
In Marysville, where roots run deep, McNally Appliances promises to keep the best brands with a smile on its face. We service what we sell, it's a warm embrace. Competitive pricing you can't ignore. With every purchase you'll love it more. From fridges to washers, all in a line. We install with care to make it shine. Major brands, trusted and true. McNally Appliances is here for you. Oh, Nally McNally, we're your first choice. In Marysville, we help you rejoice. We service what we sell, no need to stress. At McNally Appliances, we're simply the best. Our promise stands, we'll always be here. McNally Appliances, bringing you cheer.
McNally Appliances, 119 D Street, Marysville. McNallyAppliances.com. You've seen signs marking some of the gems in Marysville. They're produced by Sapphire Sign Company, providing something small, large, and mobile. With decades of experience, Sapphire Signs has pioneered local production of a variety of signs, like temporary campaign-style signs, welcomes for unique events, building signage, event promotion, and vehicle customization. Need a sign? Make it a gem from Sapphire Sign Company. On the web at sapphiremarketinggroup.net. Sapphire.
In the heart of the valley, we rise so bright, where the news flows freely in the morning light. Yuba-Sutter life, where truth comes alive. Every Tuesday's a journey, it's where we thrive. Watch it unfold. Yuba-Sutter life, in the heart of our home. Be informed, be wise. Yuba-Sutter life, we capture it all. Policy debates, hear the people's call. With Yuba-Sutter life, you'll never miss a beat. Special reports hit hard, shining a spotlight. Yuba-Sutter live. Yuba-Sutter live.
Yuba-Sutter live. It's the truth that comes through.